Welcome to the FemiNinja Project. I am your host, Cheryl I Love, middle-aged ninja hiding in plain sight, dedicated to restoring human dignity one person at a time and helping you unleash your personal power. Discover that it's possible to look like a woman, act like a lady, move like a ninja, and think like a warrior. And remember, men are always welcome on the FemiNinja Project. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the FemiNinja Project. And thank you so much for being here. And you know, our appearance and how we present ourselves to the world has a huge impact on our self-image and our self-confidence. And as we learned in our previous episode number 125, being authentic, both in our business and our personal relationships, has a huge impact on our success and our happiness. And today's guest knows an awful lot about both. Her name is Jade Alexander. She is a photographer, a videographer, co-founder and co-owner of Synergy Videography. She is an expert on helping people improve their self-image and their appearance. And she is also a wonderful friend of mine, someone I love dearly. And that's why I look so darn good right now, is because of Jade. So Jade, thank you so much for being here and welcome to the show.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me today, Cheryl. I'm so excited, and you do look amazing, but that's not entirely up to me.
Well, you did have a lot to do with it, and I'm waiting for you to teach me even more because you are a fantastic teacher as well as videographer. And that is where I'm learning a lot of these techniques, is from your online course. And we will talk about that a little bit later in the show. But what I really want to know about is how you got started on this journey to where you are now, having this incredible business, because you're incredibly successful.
Thank you.
And your work is just absolutely phenomenal. So just tell the audience who you are.
That's an awesome question. And I mean, to be honest with you, it's probably a very long story that I'm just going to sum up really fast. I had a marketing company when I was still in college. It helped me pay for school. Mm-hmm. And back in the day, I'm going to say it that way, back in the day. So 2010 was when I graduated. And that was when video was starting to become a thing. People were starting to integrate it into their business. It was a really slow moving thing. And I had been referring people to videography companies that I knew in the area because I didn't know how to do it at the time anyways. And these people were gouging my clients. My clients were having really bad experiences. And so I felt so bad. I went out, bought some equipment and just refilmed it for them. And they were like, this is better than what I got. I'm like, I'm not a videographer. I don't know how to do this. I mean, I was an artist, but I didn't go to school for it. And I felt underqualified to do it. And so what ended up happening, my co-founder, business partner, said, basically, I'll buy you every single piece of equipment that you need. We'll invest in this, go do your school, go volunteer, do nonprofit work so that you get all those skills down. He's like, you already have an artist's eye. You already know how to do photography. He's like, get after it and do it. So we did. It was a slow start. We attempted to fit in with the whole videography, photography profile, which is a very male-dominated industry. And I didn't fit in. I did not fit in at all. I was getting kind of lost in the crowd. I was just not able to make people like me because I was trying to be somebody I wasn't. So as soon as I gave up on that, I talked to a social media consultant, Holly Claire, of what do I need to do? And she's just like, girl, just be yourself. She's like, whatever, I know it's uncomfortable. I know you don't want to talk about all of your weirdness and your nerdiness and your faults and all that. She's like, but you got to do it. And as soon as I started falling into that authentic feel that, my nerdiness and my dance and my figure skating and all the things that are counter opposites to, what you would think of a person being, I started to appeal to more people and so many other different demographics. And that made all the difference. And so then I could take my, non-hardcore videography background and more of the sales strategy, psychology side of my background with the artistic side. I was getting clients that were not happy with that other style. And my turnaround time was fast. I thought it was slow. I was like, I need at least 2 to 3 weeks. And people were like, oh my gosh, this other videographer had my stuff for like 3 months. I was like, oh, really? Like, what are they doing? What are they doing with your footage? So, I wanted to change everything about the industry, and it has a bad name right now, and I want to make it what it should be.
Well, I have to tell you, I've only been in front of a video camera a handful of times, I mean, from a professional standpoint. And one was with you and a couple of times because you've done a little bit of work. And then I did a testimonial at that boot camp. But there was a huge difference between being in front of your camera and the only other time I did it, it was a professional videographer. And it was so uncomfortable. And the quality of the video, I was just like, is that really me? It didn't look right. It didn't feel right. It was just a little bit goofy. So it was a completely different experience being in front of a camera when you were on the other side, when you were behind it, because I felt so comfortable and felt like we were connecting even through the lens. So there was I didn't have the nervousness or, the anxiety, probably because you are so engaging. And what people will learn in this podcast is that you have an incredible sense of humor.
Oh, thanks. Well, I think one of the things I like to tell people, especially when they're an introvert, like I am, which people find so shocking. They're like, you're an introvert, you're a speaker, you chat, you blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, but that doesn't mean I'm shy. It means I'm uncomfortable. It means that I need to recharge, not with other people. It doesn't mean I don't like people. Let's be honest, I like some people better than others, but I think that's true for most people. But one thing I tell people is that, we didn't learn from a young age, especially those of us that are like over 25, that being in front of the camera was a normal thing. And we don't know how to engage with something that does not talk back to you, doesn't give you any facial expressions, gives you nothing. It's just a dead space. To get somebody behind the camera and make eye contact with them. So even when you are, which is harder right now because of, quarantine and that, but that was one of my quote unquote secret sauce, which really wasn't that secret. It was just stand on the other side, have a conversation, and just edit out my voice, edit out the other person's voice, or just if nothing else, have someone to look at. Because that's how we started our life journey as kids. That's how we started as babies. We interacted with someone else's face. And that's where you get that authentic side, even when you're uncomfortable on camera.
I still am shocked that you're an introvert. But I like
most
the way
people are.
Yeah, it is. It's quite shocking, especially when I see you in front of a big group. So for my listeners, Jade can really work a crowd and get control of it too. It was pretty amazing. It's very impressive to see her in action. So I can see how you would need some downtime or some time to just relax, refresh, rejuvenate.
Yeah, it's funny you say in front of a big crowd, unless I'm doing my, directing thing where I'm like, okay, you need to stand here, you need to stop talking, you need to move forward, doing that side of things, because even adults are like the worst at group pictures. You would think that they'd be easier than kids. They're just as bad. It's like herding cats. And which apparently is a real thing. I guess Mythbusters tried to do it, and it's apparently a funny video. I haven't seen it yet. I was just hearing about it, but you have, the same problem. Like, you stop talking, keep your hands to yourself, you two pay attention, and you're trying to get everybody in. So when I'm doing that, that's one thing. But when I'm on stage speaking and teaching and doing that side of things and telling my stories, if it's more than one person, I almost every single time, it's yet to not happen, I grab a bubble drink on my way out from the event, and I will drink part of it so I have something to throw up, because I throw up every single time.
Oh my God, really?
Afterwards, yeah. I've got like a 10-minute window to get the microphone off of me, because we usually have them connected and the packs in the back, to get out of the room into the ladies' room, which, by the way, I don't know why this is, but it's always farther than the men's room. I don't get that. But to get in there and have my moment, get cleaned up, and then come out. So yeah, if you ever see me speak, it can be one of those Easter egg things, something fun to look for. Look in the back of the room to see if there's a Sprite or Canada Dry or some type of clear ginger ale water bubbly thing, because it does help. I tried not drinking something afterwards, and I sounded like a cat in the stall for like a good 5 minutes. It's disgusting. So
Good to know. And now that I know this, the next time I am in a group and you're speaking, I'll make sure that there's a nice clear path
Yes,
to the
please
back
do.
of the room and to the ladies' room. So yeah, let her through, let her through.
You're sweet. Thank you.
I'm just trying to do my part. You've helped me a lot and I want to help you.
Oh, you're sweet. Thank you.
So tell us a little bit more about your story, your younger years, maybe your college years. I know that you are a dancer.
Yes.
You're an ice skater.
Yes.
I did not realize until probably 20 minutes ago that you also were a martial artist, or you may have told me that when I first met you, but that was long enough ago. And so many things have happened since then that I might have forgotten.
I don't think I told you. I don't think I did. Yeah, but I did train in some similar styles as you did when I was younger. But when I got into college, I was very done with martial arts. I didn't want to do it anymore. I wanted to do something different. So I joined the Swing Dance Society. I started doing ballroom dancing, not because I wanted to be a dancer. The guy I was dating was like this amazing dancer guy. Ended up marrying him, blah, blah, blah. But he liked dance, and I'm just like, this is dumb. Like, cause I was used to like doing physical work that was like hardcore, and I have like my knuckles protrude from, you know, the calcium buildup. And he's just like all light on his feet. And I was just like, okay, we'll go, but you know, we'll see. And I actually ended up enjoying it. A lot of the stuff in swing dancing does compare to martial arts, believe it or not.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
It does. Even some of the aerials and lifts. I was one of the favorites for aerials and lifts because I jumped. And I didn't need a lot of assist. I just needed assist on the landing, because you get so much higher when you have somebody behind you lifting you the rest of that piece that you can't do on your own. But strangely enough, martial arts also applies to figure skating fairly well. Not something I would have expected either. My college offered a 1-credit athletic class for figure skating at the ice rink up the street. And so I took it because I'm like, I've always wanted to. At the time, I didn't know my dad was a figure skater when he was younger, because he was also a martial artist and all that. He was a Marine. No idea he was a figure skater, and he's a very good one. Wow. But he never wanted me to be a skater or a dancer because of the culture that tends to accompany it, which those of you who are skaters and dancers know what I'm talking about. So he didn't want me to be like that. So I was like, well, that was my rebellion, was to take a figure skating class. Like most people, their rebellion is something really crazy, but mine was like, I'm going to take a figure skating class. What?
Wow.
So
you rebel.
Yes, I was such a rebel. It was kind of awkward though, because I rode a motorcycle at that time in college. And so I'd show up to figure skating practice with a helmet and a jacket. And for the first couple of months, because I didn't have figure skating gear, I wore my leather jacket to stay warm on the ice. And it had the padding and all that kind of stuff for preventing breaks. So it actually wasn't too bad when I fell. It protected a lot of my core and my body. But I took 1 semester, and a few of my friends in my class, of course, these excellent skaters, been skating since they're like, you know, able to stand kind of thing. They wanted to put together a synchronized skating team for the college. And they had 7 people and they needed an 8th. And they said, would you join us? And I was like, I've been skating for like 3 months. I'm like 18. Like, I've not been doing this very long. But like I said, a lot of things from martial arts translates. It can be a lot of fun. There's actually a video of me with Chris Natsky. He's an 8th degree black belt in Taekwondo. Me showing him how to do one of our tricks. It looks like almost like a back side kick. But your chest is forward, and you dip your chest down and lift your foot up, and you make a bow instead of that like strong T shape that we usually make. You arch it up, but he had all the skill and flexibility to do it in the balance. So a lot of that stuff translated, which was pretty fun. But the head coach for the synchronized team didn't want me. She didn't want me for a lot of reasons. And that was hard, because I had never had somebody say to me, you're not the right look to be a figure skater. I had never heard that before, that I wasn't the right look to do something. Because, you know, you think martial arts and things like that, you don't have to look any particular way.
Right.
You know, in ballroom dancing, you and your partner, I mean, I wasn't super competitive with it, so there wasn't a look issue. I just never had somebody do that. And so it was upsetting at first. I went home, I was like, wonder what I didn't have. And the other girls on the team that wanted their team, they're like, she's just old school. She doesn't know what she's talking about. Try out for the team anyways, and we will help you. Each one of us, because there were 7, I trained every single day.
So I just have to ask, did she give you a reason why she didn't want you, or she just said, or is that something for a later story?
She did. She said I wasn't the right body type. For those of you that can't see me, I am I would say a curvier person. You know that Big Butt song? The measurements he gives in that song are my actual measurements, which is exciting, I guess, in its own way. And I am 5'3". So
Jade is voluptuous and beautiful and,
you.
drop dead gorgeous.
You're very sweet. Thank you. But the other reasons were, my skin tone wasn't the right color. My hair was too dark. I didn't have the quote unquote look. And part of that kind of made sense because when you're in synchronized skating, you want everyone to look like the same, like you do, like the Rockettes is a good example. Right. But we were also not a professional competitive team. We were a little college team that just wanted a letter, basically. We wanted to have something else to put on our transcripts. So that was kind of upsetting to hear that. And the other girls were like, she's old school. It doesn't matter. And so it was their encouragement. I trained every single day with each girl. I had a different coach so I could get up to par because they were so good. For those of you that are martial artists, like they were like 2nd and 3rd degree black belts. And I was like, maybe a yellow belt. Like I didn't. And so I learned all this advanced stuff before I knew the basics, but it was an experience and it was a lot of fun. I'm glad I did it.
So your classmates, or not classmates, but your teammates were the ones that were teaching you and training you.
Yes. The head coach did not want to work with me.
Wow.
And so my teammates were the ones that showed up and they showed up to, public skate, which is usually not what people of that level show up for. They usually get their own ice time, but I wasn't a high enough level to get my own ice time. So we did public skate and they worked with me every single day. And I trained twice a day, once with them and once without. So that way I got as much training in, but I accelerated very fast to things that I probably should not have been able to do. The other thing was on our team, for people that don't know this, figure skating is not ambidextrous as far as like martial arts is. You learn everything equally on both sides. Figure skating, you learn on one side. So one of the other girls on the team was a left-handed person. Their team would not be able to compete if everyone was a righty and she was the only lefty. You have to have at least 2 people doing the exact same move at the same time. Always. So I learned left, which to me wasn't any different. I was like, yeah, sure, I'll be left. I don't care. Retraining after I broke my knee, learning how to do everything right is very weird. It's so weird because I learned how to do it on the left, but it was shocking. They're like, are you right-handed or left-handed? I'm like, I don't know. I can be whatever you want me to be. So
wow.
Yeah, it was an experience. And I'm really glad I did it.
But that's another correlation between the martial art is that we trained each other. And we worked very well with each other, the upper belts teaching the lower belts and learning a lot from the lower belts. It doesn't matter how much experience you have, you're always learning no matter who it is that you're working with. And how wonderful that they stepped up to the plate or stepped up to the ice and took you under their wing, and to get you to where you wanted to be. And good for you for not letting that person destroy your spirit.
Yes, I'm very grateful for them. And then the next year, we actually ended up firing that head coach as a team. And we got a different coach the next year. And she was amazing, inclusive, kind. She, I think was like, I think she's like 4'11". She's really tiny, but she has big curly hair. She was curvy. She had like the best personality. And when I told her that, she was like, I'm sickened by that happened. She's like, that should have never happened. I was like, that's part of the reason why we fired her. So
yeah, right.
But yeah, I mean, I think the other girls learned a lot from teaching too. I found that the best way to learn something is to teach it to somebody else.
Yes. And yes, it is.
That was an experience. So I just, yeah, it was a good story, but there was a lot in that skating culture I wasn't used to. The first one being how expensive it is.
Oh yeah.
Skating and dance, way more expensive than martial arts. That was a new thing for me. And our ice time, because we weren't priority, because we didn't pay the higher dollar to get the ice time, because we're all in college, we all have no money. We had this really early ice time. I mean, and again, let's think college. I was a night person anyways. We had to get up so early that when I left, it was still dark out. Like you could still see stars. Like that's the time of morning that we had to leave for our ice time. Ugh. And the first practice I ever went to, I had never been up this early before. I lived with my other roommates. I lived with all boy roommates because I just got along with them better. And they were all also martial artists. So that was kind of fun. And I went to leave the house, and outside of my car, waddling around is this raccoon. Now, I'm from the city. I am not, I mean, I've lived in major cities my whole life. I am not a woodsy person. And this college I went to is a smaller town. I wouldn't call it a small town, but it was an agricultural kind of area. And so I saw this thing. I knew what it was because I've seen National Geographic. I've never seen one in real life. And so I just kind of carefully like stepped backwards into the house like a reverse ninja, trying not to startle it. And so I went to go get my other roommate who grew up on a ranch. And I was like waking him up. I was like, David. He's like, yeah. And I was like, hey, so there's a raccoon outside and it's by the car and it's going at me. And he kind of looked at me blurry-eyed. He's like, oh, he's happy. He's fine. Just go to your car. And rolled over and went back to sleep. I mean, I don't know what I was expecting him to do, if I was expecting him to like wrangle it or something, but he full on like let me down. So I went back out to the car and I have my keys. And of course I didn't have one of those fobs to unlock it. I mean, I had like the old school key because I'm in college. And so I go out there and I don't see it. And so I'm kind of like doing like my women's self-defense stuff. Like I'm checking corners, like I'm looking at the car, I'm trying to see where he's at, this little bastard. So I get in the car and I check the back seat. Cause again, that's, you know, you don't, I mean, they have hands, maybe it could open the door. I don't know. And so I check the back seat and I don't see him. But as I'm looking over my shoulder, I see him waddling down the street. And you know how raccoons have that like fat butt waddle and they just like own whatever it is that's around them. And so I start talking trash because it's early in the morning. He scared the hell out of me. And so I'm like, yeah, you better walk. And he turned around and looked at me with his eyes. And I was like, oh, and I hit the door lock because the door lock was automated. I just didn't have a fob. And so, I mean, I locked it because I got scared and I was just like, oh, I'm so mad. And so I backed the car out of the driveway and went to class. And this raccoon and I had this standoff about once a month for years. It was like full on Wild West, you know, wow, like thing every single time we had a standoff. And it always resulted in the same thing. He'd waddle off and I'd, you know, go to class. So this went on for, like I said, a few years. And when I was in my last semester, my other roommates were moving on because I was the baby of the group, so to speak. And so I was moving to another house, another location. And it was the last trip of the night. It was super, super late. I mean, it was one of those times where we were back to almost morning kind of thing. And I have the car just stuffed full. And it's a little hatchback that I was driving at the time. And so it's just stuffed with boxes and things that were just the odds and ends on the last trip of the house. And I'm exhausted. And I was looking around and I was thinking, I'm like, I'm going to miss that raccoon. And I know. Cause I mean, we had a relationship. It was not a great relationship, but you know, when you think about it, like I had been around him for a couple of years. So I was like, oh, I'm going to miss him.
Well, he probably felt the same way about you. He just didn't quite know you were leaving.
So I put the car in reverse, and as I'm backing out, I hear thump thump. I was like, oh my God, I hit the raccoon. So I got out of the car. I'm looking under the wheel wells, and I was like, oh, I'm so sorry, because that's all I could think to do. And underneath the wheel well was a chunk of ice. I run over, thinking it was that damn raccoon. And that was my last encounter, so to speak, with him, is thinking that I accidentally killed him. So,
oh my God. That's an amazing story. Yeah, raccoons you just don't want to mess with them. Yeah. There was one in my yard. It was a few years ago. And my husband used to travel a lot with business, you know, not anymore. But yeah, right. But he was out of town. And I woke up and it wasn't quite light. You know, it was early enough this summer, early enough in the morning that it was still, you know, a little twilighty.
Yeah,
you know,
there's that time that they like. It's like their time.
I didn't know that, but I'm walking through my kitchen and I just happened to glance out the door, and, you know, I've got a huge backyard and I've got a tiny little chair I always have in the center of the yard. And that's where I call it my backyard TV. I go sit in that chair and I just look around, and it's just my happy place, a place to relax. So I'm walking through and I look and I did a double take and I immediately go into rescue mode. It's like, oh my God, whose dog is that sitting by my chair? And, I used to do doggy rescue and I'm like, I've got to take care of this dog. He's lost and blah, 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 blah. And so as I went to the door to open up the patio door, it was like, oh, that's not a dog. It's a raccoon. So I closed the door and I have 2 Italian greyhounds. Okay. At that point, 2 little Italian, real tiny little Italian greyhounds. And I'm thinking they're still in bed. They're going to be getting up soon. They're going to have to go to the bathroom. And this raccoon is going to it's not going to work out. Exactly. Tear them apart. So I get on the text, I text my husband right away. It's like, there's the biggest freaking raccoon in the center in the yard. He texts right back and he says, how did it get in the yard? And I text back, it's a raccoon. And he's like, well, don't let the dogs out. I know that. It's a raccoon. And then I'm standing in the doorway and watching this thing and it lumbers, that lumbering thing across the yard going into my grape leaves. And I started yelling at the raccoon going, you got to go. You got to go. You need to leave. And he turned and he looked at me from across the yard and he hissed at me.
Oh my God. It sounds awful when they do that too.
Yes. And I was like, okay, we won't do that. So I closed the door, text my husband again. And he says, well, this was so stupid. He says, well, open the gate so he can get out.
Yeah, because that's what he's waiting on.
No, Mike, he's a raccoon. He doesn't need the gate open. Okay. So we're going back and forth with this. And then all of a sudden the raccoon came out. And by now I've got my iPhone and I'm videoing him. He's lumbering across the yard back toward my chair, stops in front of my chair and starts pawing at something. And I'm like, oh, he's found something. And that something started coiling and moving. It was a snake.
Oh God.
So it's like, okay. So I close the door again. I go inside and I sit on my couch and I'm going, who do I call first? 911 or a realtor? Because I'm not staying here. And I hate snakes more than I hate raccoons. But eventually I saw the raccoon climbing along the fence going, down to the neighbors and stuff. So I figured, okay, it was all right. So I went outside with the dogs, kept them close. And then I'm thinking, there's that either injured or dead snake by my chair. Who am I going to get? What neighbors? I'm going to be knocking on the door. Excuse me, Mike's out of town. Would you mind coming and get a dead snake? And when you get him, don't put him in my trash can, put him in somebody else's. Anyhow, as the day went by, I kept getting closer and closer to see the dead snake, to see, what I was going to do. There was no snake. The raccoon had eaten it.
Oh man. I guess they call them trash pandas for a reason. Oh.
Yeah, that's my raccoon story. So yeah.
That's a great one.
Thanks.
I guess I have a pest one, but this one involves a 3rd degree black belt. So this one will be fun. So this guy is, he's the friend of the family. He also trained in martial arts, blah, blah, blah. He's one of those like bodybuilder guys. And I don't say like he tries, like he actually competed. He had the little gold thong. Like he was a full on bodybuilder. He was like a super tough guy, like the muscle cars, like nothing really scared him. And so he's staying at our house doing some cross training with our family. And we are watching TV and we have these 2 big recliners. And I had fallen asleep watching Jackass with him. And then I feel my chair shaking. I was like, what is it? So I don't wake up well, just FYI, because I'm one of those people. It always seems to be the same time of day. This stuff happens to me. And he's shaking me. He's like, Jade. I'm like, what? He's like, it's the queen. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And this is before the decades of like, yas queen, like the queen, we think like queen bee, queen alien, like queen, right? Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, what are you talking about? And so he like pushes me into the room. Now he is probably a foot taller than me, about 3 times wider than me, but he's hiding behind me, pushing me by my shoulders into the kitchen. And there's this spider, this just massive spider. And it looks like one of the arachnids from Arachnophobia, where he got that connection of the queen from that movie. Those of you who've seen that movie, It's a classic. And it was some type of wolf spider, I think. But it was big. It was probably the size, like its body was the size of like $50, and then its legs went out. And so I was just like, oh God. Now, I'm not afraid of snakes or spiders. Like truly what I'm afraid of are velociraptors, like from the movie, The Dinosaurs, like those freak me out. So
Okay.
anything else, I'm like, okay, well, I can handle this. And so I grab a big mixing bowl, one of the OXO brand ones that's like super sealant, whatever, and some carpet spray. And I put the bowl on it and spray it around so that way it made that suction. So the spider couldn't get out. And so I made a really big foam ring. I got one of my dad's combat boots, and he was like a size, I think 14 or 16 or something. So I got a massive boot. This guy, this black belt behind me is of no help at all. Like he's like standing on his tippy toes. He's like, what are you going to do with that? What are you gonna, it's just going to make it mad. I was like, are you going to help or are you just going to like prance around? And so I gave him a broom to like bat it back because he was not going to get any closer. And I go to lift the bowl because the thought was when I lift the bowl, the spider's going to run. It's going to run into the foam because I did probably a good 6 inches of foam around it. And I was going to beat it down with a boot. And as I'm going to lift the bowl, he's like, what if it's in the middle of the bowl? Like as if it had climbed up. And I was like, then I'm throwing it at you because you woke me up. So I lifted the bowl and I was right. It had just run right into the bubbles. And it sounded like, I can't even imagine what it sounded like because I hit it like 15 times with this boot. Like legs are flying off. Like I'm swearing at it. I'm like telling it what's going to happen. He's sitting there going, he's freaking out. Useless man. And then we scooped the spider up in a paper plate and put him in the trash. So here's the funny part. We went to bed. He's staying in the guest room. My mom gets up super early because I don't know, she's like part possum or something. I don't know what's her deal. And we hear a scream, but it's not like a woman scream. It's like a yell with a bunch of profanity because she was a Marine following it. And she goes and gets both of us. She slams on his door. She slams on mine. She's like, get your asses out here. And I was like, what did we do? You know, so second time for the day I've been woken up by somebody yelling at me. And she's like, she opens the trash. She's like, what the hell is this? And there's like the dead spider carcass, like just there. And it was the first thing she saw, scared her because she was first thing in the morning. And then she goes and slaps both of us in the arm. Like, she's like, you dumbasses, don't throw it away in this trash. Throw it in the outside trash. I don't want to see that. Just
you threw it away inside in the kitchen trash? Oh, jeez.
Yeah, we didn't think to throw it away outside. We just
oh my God.
She's like that, or flush it. Like I don't know what's wrong with you two morons. So
geez.
That's the story with the black belt involved.
Well, one of my training partners, the only other woman in the dojo who ever got anywhere. And this woman, I love her to death. Love her, love her, love her. She's 30 years younger than me. She had been training in martial arts her entire life since the age of 7. All she ever wanted was to be a martial artist, blah, 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 have her own dojo, all kind of stuff. And then there was me, the 47-year-old princess when I started training. And we didn't get along very well at first until, we finally got our rhythm and we ended up being great friends, black belts together, did a lot of training together. Oh yeah, I broke her foot one time, but it wasn't my fault. It was the technique that did it. It wasn't me. So, she's tough. She's not very big. She's shorter than me. She's a stockier a little bit, but she is fierce. She is the fiercest martial artist I'd ever met, not afraid of anything. I came to the dojo one day and I saw her car, so I knew she was there. And, nobody else was in the dojo. I open the door, I walk in and I hear this high-pitched screaming coming from the ladies' dressing room. And I'm going, I wonder what in the world that is. And I looked and she was in her underwear.
Oh God.
With her gi top on, and she's dancing this jig right outside of the woman's dressing room and screaming her head off. And finally I said, what is the problem? And she says, there's a spider. There's a spider in the dressing room. Oh my God, I'm afraid to go out in my gi pants and blah, blah, blah. So I'm trying not to laugh and I'm walking across the mat, very sedate. And I looked at her and I said, I'll take care of it. Don't you worry. And she says, aren't you afraid? I'm like, no, I'm not afraid. It's all right. But I'm trying not to laugh because I thought, oh my God, this tough, hardcore, kick butt and take names and, ask questions later is afraid of a spider. So I went through babies. Oh, I know. And so I went through the entire dressing room. I had her pants. I shook them out. I took them. She wouldn't even come back in the dressing room. So I had to take them out to her. Thank goodness nobody else had come in at that point. And I said, look, I'm through. I went all the way through them. I shook her pants out again, put my hands through and stuff. But I thought that was just the funniest thing that this really tough martial artist, and she was afraid of this little spider. And then I found out later that she was afraid of children. So, we all have our thing.
Mm-hmm.
We all have our thing. So we certainly did digress along the way, but I think you have incredible superpowers.
Oh, thank you.
And there's another thing that I wanted to talk about, because it was one of the words that the coach said to you, that you didn't fit in.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you started your own business, you were trying to emulate everybody else so right. You and your partner could, quote unquote, fit in.
Right.
And it didn't work.
Right. Yeah, it was not going to happen, and we were not going to survive that way.
But I think it's just, I think that might be your superpower.
Oh, I never thought of it that way.
It's like, well, you don't fit in, and it's like, oh, here, watch me. Hold my dead spider carcass while I show you.
Yeah, I mean, because I think there's an innate thing. You want to fit in. You want to be liked. You want to be liked by everybody. And the fact is, there will be something that someone won't like. You will never get everyone. If it was possible to get everyone, it would not be, like politicians wouldn't have the problems that they do. Beauty queens would always win. Like, that kind of stuff. There's always something that someone's not going to like about you. And what it really came down to is finding the people that liked me the way that I was, for the qualities that I had, for my personality. I literally had somebody tell me that my eyes are too big, and that's why they don't watch my videos. I was like, okay. Like, all right, I'm glad that my eyes offend you. Like, that's weird, but okay. So finding people that don't mind how big my eyes are, people that are there to get the full package. And I sometimes I really wish I was good at like lying or deceiving, because then I wouldn't always like lose poker games. And I could probably get out of trouble, but I am the worst liar. Like, you will totally know if I'm trying to lie. It's the worst. And so, I can't help but be this way. I can't help but be authentic. I can't help but just be honest with you. And when I don't like somebody, there's no question. They know it. Their friends know it. The dog next door knows it. Like, it's the real thing. And my business partner actually told me this. I was like, I don't know. People keep calling me quirky and exotic and weird. He's like, those are all good things. I'm like, how is that good? Being called weird is something we grew up with as kids. Like, that's not a good thing to call somebody weird. But he's like, no, but weird is different. Different and quirky are all things that are going to make you stand out. And when you stand out, that's what's going to make you money in the business. And I was like, oh.
It's so much better than being boring or predictable.
Which I am not, I promise.
You are definitely not boring or predictable.
Yeah, but just do your own thing. Authenticity really matters. And for people that are afraid to be on camera, because I hear that a lot, or they're uncomfortable, or they're nervous, or they just hate it. I hear that word a lot. I hate being on camera. And I'm like, I'm with you. I don't like it either. Like, doing podcasts and doing these posts and doing all the stuff that we have to do in order to survive in our business right now, it's not ideal for those that are like that. But when you are your real self, it's easier than trying to pretend to be somebody on camera. Because it's so hard to fake it. It really is, to try and be somebody that you think people want you to be. And when you're your real self, you're going to attract your best clients, because they want you for you. If you try to be someone else, you're going to attract those people that are the worst fit for you.
Not only that, when you're trying to be somebody else, or to be who you aren't, that is exhausting.
Oh my gosh. So yeah, you're already tired of being on camera, and you're tired of being somebody else. So yeah, it really is that secret, if you want to call it that, is just be yourself the best that you can. Come off as authentic as possible, and you're going to attract the right people, and you'll be seen for who you really are.
How can people get a hold of you?
Oh my gosh, so many ways. So they can follow our hashtags, anything Synergy Videography. They can look up my name, Jade Alexander. I am the brunette with the big eyes and big smile. That's probably me if you find me online. But yeah, reach out to us. Our website is influencingoncamera.com. Find us, reach out to me. If nothing else, if you want to see some really funny, goofy, random videos, watch our social media. If you want the occasional like nugget of information, check that out too. It is as random as this conversation has been. Let's just put it that way.
And as much fun.
I hope so. So yeah, I mean, when people want to move forward with what they're doing with their business, if they're needing to do their videos, especially if they're introverts, there's a couple ways to work with me. You can join our online community. Cheryl is a part of that.
I love it.
We do. Oh, thank you. We do webinars, live Q&As. I do tutorial videos, and people just submit their questions to me, put their videos up there for me. I give them feedback. I did one just now for Ken. He started from somewhere that really needed help, and now he's just rocking it. I'm so proud of him.
He looked like a pro. The last one I saw, that man looked like a pro. I was so excited for him. It was just wonderful. I have no idea where he started from, but even just to see, a few previous ones, and to see the one that he put out, what was it, yesterday or today, was just magnificent. I'm
really proud of him.
Yeah.
And I mean, and that's what's important, is because we have this dichotomy right now where we have to look approachable and authentic and real, but we also have to look professional. So if you look too professional on your videos, you're not trustworthy. And if you don't look professional enough, no one wants to pay you. So it's a really weird spot we have to fit into. So, I mean, for those of you that are DIYers, want to do it yourselves, I have an online program that you can do at your own pace. So, and if you're just one of those people that just wants to get out of the way, just Jade, tell me what to do. Come here, set my camera up, just do it. I can do that too. So I'm here to support in as many ways to as many people as possible.
And even with the setting up the cameras and that type of thing that you can do individually, you can do that remotely as well.
That's correct. Yes. So I actually have gone on site, and I've also done it remotely. The big thing with that is making sure you know your rights and your lefts. I worked with somebody
that's really tough.
Who's right, left dyslexic. And so that was, I had to reprogram myself to say, okay, your right, left hand.
Yeah.
But yes, absolutely. I'm here to help. I'm here to support. If nothing else, just be my friend. Just friend me on Facebook. I would love that.
Well, as you can tell, everybody, Jade is an amazing person and a really good friend, and amazing to talk to. And this was just the tip of the iceberg. Believe me, we could have been here forever. So anyway, Jade, it has been so much fun. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate, and I really appreciate all the help that you have given me, and all the help that you're going to continue to give me in the future. You're just a delight to work with.
I'm really excited for you. And you know, Cheryl, you have a lot going for you.
Oh,
you have the right personality. You're calm, but also exciting, which is a really hard thing to pull off, like something I can't. You have such a story. I have your book. I have a signed copy, which is great. But you have all these different walks of life and things that you've experienced that I think is really exciting that you're bringing it to people. And you look great.
Oh, thank you.
Great. I didn't have to do much. She made me feel like I did a lot. I didn't have to do much with her. Let's be honest. She will always look great.
Well, I will have to share with you and thousands of people who are listening to this right now, the day that I had to show up to do a podcast, to record an episode in my bathrobe, because I got confused with the time change between Germany and Denver, and missed it by about an hour, and got a message. It's like, I'm here in the waiting room. And I'm like, I'm here in my bathrobe. So yeah, so I pulled it off. I just, it's like I just sucked it up. I came downstairs, I set everything up. And when I admitted her, I said, I'm not turning on the video until I warn you ahead of time. I am in my bathrobe, but I am wearing pants. So it turned out okay.
Well, I think that's really the thing now. If you're wearing pants,
I'm wearing pants. So we were covered.
Ich habe Lederhosen, right?
There you go.
I at least have pants. So.
Well, Jade, thanks again. And I look forward to working with you again, with the projects we've got going forward, and would love to have you on the show again in a couple of months, just so you can catch up and, just see what's going on. And especially, by that time, some of the wildlife will be hanging out in our yards and stuff.
Yeah, so we'll have new experiences.
And new stories to talk about. Yeah. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it. And make sure that you put your best face forward, because your appearance really says a lot about how you feel about yourself. And it is so important for your self-confidence. And when you feel good, you look good, and you're attractive to people, both from a business and personal standpoint. So that is the way of the FemiNinja. And that's a wrap on another episode of the FemiNinja Project. Thank you so much for listening. And remember, be safe, be strong, and until next time, bye now.